Let's go ahead and begin the full Committee of Education Administration. Members, we have a couple of presentations today, which I get to in a minute. We don't have two bills. I will take the bills first because I believe we can knock those out in short order. Go to our presentations. We got a couple of great presentations that you'd be excited to hear. Before we begin, though, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Representative Baum. Here. Carringer. Present. Cassida. Here. Sapicki. Here. Clemens. Here. Cochran. Here. Darby. Here. Gillespie. Here. Hakeem. Here. Haston. Here. Lafferty. Here. Love. Here. Parkinson. Reagan. Here. Vice Chairman Hurt. Here. Chairman White.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Members, anybody needs to be recognized or announcement or comment before we begin? Seeing none. Okay, let's start with House Bill 83. Chairman Moon, you are recognized. We have a motion and a second. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Committee. Present law establishes the Tennessee Support Training Renewing Opportunity for National Guard members, known as the STRONG Act, and it provides tuition reimbursement for undergraduate work, 120 hours, semester hours. This bill makes changes as follows. It adds TCATs and TBR institutions as part of the program, so they're be reimbursed at 24 semester hours. It adds to the mandatory fees in the definition. It provides for fees to be reimbursed. Current law says tuition, and under that definition now, mandatory lab fees, other fees will be added. It specifically, in this change, says that the program does not provide tuition reimbursement for doctoral programs or for semester hours of dual enrollment in high school or GED. The current bill says that an undergraduate student will maintain a 2.0 grade point average. The proposed bill says that a graduate student will maintain 3.0 and that a technical student will make significant progress during that program. It also provides for people who are under the ROTC program scholarship. They have to take certain military courses that are required for the commission. The law currently provides 120 hours for undergraduate. There's an additional 30 hours of reimbursement provided for those ROTC students. Most importantly, this bill extends the program through June 30, 2025. The current bill sunsets at June 30, 2021. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Representative Moon. Members, if y'all remember last year, we passed this through the House with flying colors. Didn't make it through the Senate due to the pandemic. But I appreciate Representative Moon bringing this back this year. One thing I've found out over the course of last year in studying this bill is this really helps our Tennessee Air National Guard recruit and retain Guard members, which is very, very important to our National Guard, our state military. And Representative Moon, would you like to recognize our guest today, or would you like me to do that? Oh.
Well, I'll be glad to. We have Chief Warrant Officer Scarlett Bonet. She's the ESS officer, and her predecessor, whose husband's with us, Colonel Deal, his wife, Mary Deal, worked as ESS that passed the original legislation 4 years ago. And we have Nick Atwood with the Department of Military with us today, our liaison. And Nick Atwood is also a Black Hawk pilot. And, our Guard, if you remember, a year ago we had the tornado. They were activated. Then we had the pandemic, and they traveled across the state and surveyed sites for COVID, both for triage and for treatment. Then we had civil unrest, and they were called out. But You don't know about people like Mr. Atwood, who goes into the Smokies, his counterparts, and lifts people out, maintain a hover and up, down, and down drafts, and pulls people out that are injured and flies them to Blunt Memorial Hospital or University of Tennessee Hospital in Knoxville. You don't hear about them that much, but they are so necessary to our community in the Maryville, Blount County, Knoxville area. But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. And when I found out that Mr. Atwood was a helicopter pilot, I love helicopters. I'm on his short list somewhere, hopefully someday on that. Yes, sir.
This is a retention tool. We have young captains. One of them just came back from Kosovo, who spent 9 months in Kosovo, deployed there as part of our agreement through the UN, and he's a young captain. This will provide him the master's degree to become a lieutenant colonel and colonel. And we need to keep those people. They're talented people, and we need to keep them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
For our state. And by the way, members, this Strong Act was done a number of years ago. The money's already there. The state put $8.9 million into this fund years ago. And so we're in the process of there's no extra money in this particular bill. Chairman Reagan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank the sponsor for bringing this bill. And also I'd like to thank the guardsmen who are participating and earning these benefits that we're proud to put before them. Thank you, Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? Questions been called for. Any objection to the bill, to the question? Hearing none. All those in favor of moving House Bill 83 out of Finance, Ways and Means indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Moves out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Moon. Thank you, guest. Appreciate that. Chief Bernier, you're going to take care of business now, okay? Hear that she may need to have a checkup. All right. The second bill actually is mine, so I'm going to pass the gavel to Vice Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next is House Bill 73 by Chairman White. Properly motioned and seconded. Chairman White, you're recognized on the bill.
Thank you, members, committee. This was brought to me by, actually the bill already exists, but we're going to add to it a little bit. But TBR, if you remember in years past, it deals with candidates entering the executive search for college presidents. And now we're adding chancellorships in our TBR system. And we can all agree that ensuring the best possible candidate pools is paramount for the state. The bill allows for the most qualified individuals to enter the selection process without fear of a negative outcome with their current employer if they are not selected. So we want to get the best candidates, and sometimes if you make it public too soon, then they had to take their name off the list. So that's what we're doing. We're adding chancellors, and it's a process that we already have in place for selecting our presidents.
Question's been called on the bill. Members, we're going to vote on sending House Bill 473 to calendar and rules. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Ayes have it. House Bill 473 will move to calendar and rules.
Thank you very much, Chairman Hurt. Okay, members, really want to keep everybody here for a while. We've got a couple of great presentations. One is from Commissioner Parker, Department of Corrections. As we've talked a lot about in our education, that a child needs to be able to read by third grade because they're on their life is pretty crucial if they do not get a proper education. So Commissioner Parker, could you come on up? And while you're getting settled, the second one feeds into this. We've got a presentation called Stand in the Gap. It's a great drug awareness program for our children. Mr. Dan Spurlock and his wife Hazel are here, and they actually are from Jerry Sexton's and Senator Nicely's districts. And we're going to let them present just some fascinating materials. Commissioner Parker, welcome. Thank you all for being here. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members, for having us today to give us the opportunity to talk a little bit about correctional education in our special school district within the Tennessee Department of Corrections. With me today Miss Vicki Freeman. She is the Assistant Commissioner of Rehabilitative Services for the Department of Corrections. Vicki supervises all educational activities, rehabilitation programs, drug and alcohol programs. She's the one that really has her finger on the pulse of the department when you look at our mission of providing rehabilitation programs for the people under our custody. So I want to thank her publicly for what she does. She does a fantastic job. Our first slide, as a special school district approved by the Tennessee Department of Education, we have 15 schools and a total of 229 educators consisting of principals, school teachers, career technology, vocational instructors. And I want to talk just a little bit about our process of when we receive individuals into our custody. Upon receipt at a diagnostic center, at a TDOC facility, and again, these are at Bledsoe Correctional Complex in East Tennessee is our male diagnostic center, and the Deborah Johnson Rehabilitation Center here in Nashville is our rehabilitation center for females. There's a battery of tests that's conducted there. And one of those tests, as most of you know, for anyone who we cannot verify a high school diploma or education. We perform a TABE test to make a determination of what level an individual may be at from an educational standpoint. Inmates who have not obtained their high school diploma or their equivalency are required to enroll in a TDOC adult basic education program to ensure that we prepare them for high school equivalency. Now, there's a few exceptions to that for individuals that our policy sets a limit somewhere around the age of 60, 65, but we try to use good discretion on someone who may be, that makes a convincing argument that they're too old to go to school. They did not graduate from high school, but they're interested in some other type of learning. We try to use good discretion in making those decisions about who goes to school and who does not. But I can tell you, for the biggest majority of the people who we see, young people that come into the system, they all are required to attend educational services. And we recognize the impact of basic education that it has on an individual's success, both inside the facility as well as certainly when we release those individuals back into the community. I want to take just a minute to talk real briefly about our correctional teachers in the Tennessee Department of Corrections. I salute each and every one of them. They have a most difficult job. You hear me often talk about the hard work of correctional officers, but as a warden, I would go into our education buildings and see with a classroom of 20 to 30 students there. And it's not always, a classroom of people who are there ready to learn, willing to learn. It takes a lot of motivation. It takes a lot of painstaking effort, really, to get people motivated. And I just want to say that I'm proud of the work they do. Again, it's not in most cases, it's not the best situation, and they have to really work sometimes to hold students' attention level and really get the job across. But they do a good job each and every day in our facilities across the state. In TDOC, the basic education offers the access to education. We have a special education that's offered at Northwest Correctional Complex, as well as Deborah Johnson Rehabilitation Center for special education. Education services for students with disabilities. We have those Title I programs within the Department of Corrections. And we also have English as a second language for those people who may not speak fluent English. We have programs to provide services for those individuals. Additionally, we have career pathways. We're talking about career technical education, vocational primarily. We also do a lot of work with Tennessee College of Applied Technology, available through the governor's education reinvestment partnership with the Tennessee Board of Regents. You've heard about some of the work we're doing there with TCATs. Post-secondary college participants, again, we participate with the Tennessee Higher Education Initiative, community college, private colleges, and universities. And I can just tell you that from experience that education, especially having opportunity for higher education in our environment, is money well spent, because you're releasing people back to the community that has a degree that they can take and use and get a good job, and it provides so much pro-social support. Tell you a personal story. When I was a sergeant at Lake County Regional Prison in West Tennessee, I was working second shift. I was attending college at Dyersburg State University. And there was a class I needed for my degree that at that time we had Pell Grants still in place, and that we were providing those. And I took a class on a Wednesday night with the participants at the facility that I needed for my degree. And I saw personally the changes in some of these people that sat in a class and participated in higher education, that it changed their mindset. I think it changed the way they looked at themselves. And it also, I think, made a difference, a positive difference, when they are released back into the community. At this time, I'd like to, if it pleases the chairman of the committee, I'd like to introduce Vicki Freeman again, who is our Assistant Commissioner of Rehab Services, who can really dig into details and give you some specific information about our programs across the state.
Assistant Commissioner, you're recognized to state your name for the video record, those watching online.
Turn your mic on, Vicki.
I'm Vicki Freeman, and Mr. Chair, I'd like to thank you for the statement you made that a child by the third grade needs to be proficient in reading. It's really important to note, going back to what Commissioner Parker said about the assessments that we do when we get an offender inside the prison. The TABE testing shows, and this is our most current data for FY21, shows that females have an average of a 5th grade level for math, language, and reading, and that our male offenders coming in have an average of 2nd grade level. When we look specifically at reading, our females still test out at 5th grade level, but our males test out at 1st grade level. That's really impactful to our population and the interventions that we must provide to ensure that they get an education. We tested 331 females and 995 males, and this average stays consistent both in the first quarter and the second quarter of FY21.
Ms. Freeman, would you restate that? Did you just say that our male population within our Tennessee prisons test out at a 1st grade reading level?
Our diagnostic, yes, the ones coming in. So the ones coming into the prison from the streets test out reading at 1st grade, reading, math, and language at 2nd grade, and the females test out at 5th grade.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. The interventions that we
And
provide.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but we've got two that want to ask you a question. Chairman Sapicki first.
So these are people that are coming into your facilities that are over the age of 18.
Yes, sir.
And in the state of Tennessee, you're required to go to school until you're 18.
Yes, sir.
So they didn't get this way after the age of 18.
Correct.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Representative Cochran.
Thank you. I had one quick follow-up question on that as well. In your test, I mean, in your diagnostic test, did you have any statistics on how many of those might have a learning disability? Would you have any kind of grasp on how many might have something like that?
So we do have interventions for dyslexia.
Yeah.
And I do not have specific data on that for our population as to how many, but I have been researching that. Texas has done some research on their population, and approximately 80% of the males in Texas have dyslexia.
Okay, that'd be interesting to know.
So
Whether it's dyslexia or some other type of learning disability, I just think that would be interesting just for our knowledge to know which population is being most
Yes, sir.
affected
That
there.
is something I'm exploring when I heard those statistics on Texas.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Deputy Commissioner. Hey, Commissioner Park, good to see you. Thank you too. Along those lines, how many of those that are tested have mental health challenges?
That's a very good question, because not only do we have to try to intervene for the education deficits, but about 45% of our male population and 75% of our population have mental health issues. And mental health issues lead to substance issues. And if we don't address those, and you're sitting in a classroom with mental health issues and substance abuse issues, sitting in that classroom is not going to do you much good.
Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And give us, I'm a visual person, give us an idea what that diagnostic test looks like that gives you the determination of what grade level they're at.
And I apologize, I am not an educator, so I do not have that information. I can get that for you as to what that testing looks like for the
Thank you,
tape.
ma'am. Okay.
Thank you. You may continue.
What we do focus on is trying to prepare them to pass the high set. And I'm a firm believer that everybody can learn, no matter what grade you're at, that we have to intervene at that individual need level and not teach to be teaching, but teach to learn. We test quarterly with the tape to see progression in the classroom. And for that annual assessment, the average for Tennessee is about 55.5%. And again, we have a lot more needs for our population with the mental health and substance use issues that we also have to address. This does not indicate that our population is, and I hate to use the word dumb, but our population is not dumb. They've just never had the intervention needed. They score very high on the high set in science and in social studies. We find our deficits are in reading and math. Some of the interventions that we were able to achieve with the governor's education reinvestment and legislature's approval, which we are greatly appreciative of. We have the High Set Academy, which is personalized learning plan for each student, and it tracks the progress as they progress through the lesson plan. We were able to get Reading Horizons, which actually intervenes from that first to third grade level for reading and spelling. And then Let's Go Learn, which is reading and math diagnostics and provides interventions there. We were also able to provide the classroom technology through that funding and put over 300 computers in the classrooms to support these interventions. Once we get an offender through the high set, they're able to go on to CTE, Career and Technical Education programs. TDC offers 16 career technical and educational vocational programs. We also offer 2 career preparedness programs. We have over 1,500 students in these programs. We also provide national certification, NCCER, National Center for Construction Education Research certifications. And for FY to date, we have 192 of those. Tennessee College of Applied Technology. We offer those courses in basic construction technology, computer information technology, welding, industrial electricity, and farming operations. We have 13 TCAP programs, 201 students enrolled in those, and those are on clock hours, so it takes several hundred clock hours, over 900, to complete those programs, and we have 12 graduates to date. We have statewide articulation agreements with the Tennessee Board of Regents, and this allows those students enrolled in our CTE programs to receive clock credit hours for comparable TCAP programs. We were also able to stand up 6 new TCATs during the pandemic and 4 new associate degree programs. So we were able to continue forward.
Commissioner Parker.
Just to comment on that, and the TCATs and the educational programs within the department, I just want to make a point that as we saw schools close in some areas, and we saw a tick back in educational services over the summer dealing with the pandemic, the Tennessee Department of Corrections, we maintained those services in our school systems across the state. We know how important it is to keep people engaged, to keep people busy, for those people who are receiving educational services, and also those people who have, assignments, jobs within that facility. And I say that to say that when we first began the project with TCAT, I was a little, I guess, somewhat apprehensive about the new instructors coming in that had been accustomed to teaching outside the correctional environment, coming into the correctional environment teaching. And I can tell you, Mr. Chairman and committee, they have not missed a beat. They have been on board every day with us and doing a great job. And Vicki may speak to this, but it's interesting. And we did, in some cases, for our academic classes, and may have done this for vocational, I'm not sure, but we scaled back a little bit on the numbers of people within the classroom itself, and we saw some pretty positive results because of that. And that may be a lesson learned that we want to take forward as we look at pass rates for exams and things like that, is how many people we have in the class. But just wanted to say that I'm most proud of the people who provide those services, the teachers, and again.
Question, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Parker, I want to thank you for all you do for our state and for those who are incarcerated, the work that you do, sir. And I want to mention that your staff has always been responsive when I reached out to them, and I greatly appreciate that, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I want to ask, the presentations that you're giving us, the statistics, and I would say the outline when it comes to persons who have mental health or other kind of problems or concerns, is that something that could be shared with us, a 1-page or 2-page or whatever?
Yes.
Okay. And one statistic in particular, I probably wasn't clear on it, dealing with dyslexia. What was that percentage that you gave?
We do not have statistics for Tennessee.
Oh.
Recently, I have been looking at studies on that, trying to find interventions for our population and why they come in reading at a first grade level. And I was reading articles on Texas, and about 80% of their intake population, the male intake population, has dyslexia.
80.
That prompts me to start looking at our population
Okay.
to see if that's something that we need to have more robust intervention for.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
One more question for me, and I'll also ask some more of our committee want to ask. Our next presentation, which fits so well in this and is fascinating, the members are going to enjoy this, is addiction of our young people. Do you have data on how the addiction of our young people in our society today, how that's affecting DLC?
About 50% of our population, Commissioner, if I may, has a substance use issue. And again, if you're in a classroom, you're not going to learn if you have a mental health issue or a substance use issue that's not being addressed. So having a holistic approach and addressing all of those really gets the intervention level that's needed.
Thank you. Representative Carringer?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner Parker, and all of your staff. I'm very passionate about what we can do when we have those who are incarcerated, and that we try to rehabilitate them so that they are able to go out and live a life when they get out. So one of my questions is, do you all use the strong R to test for the education level, or do you use a separate test?
Yeah, Commissioner.
Yes, sure.
The strong R will indicate that there's an education need, and that's usually self-reported data for the strong R. But that TABE is the intervention that we use because we have to look at the specific grade level that the intervention has to occur at.
And just one follow-up, if I may.
Yes, sir.
And the strong R would also, now, the strong R could come into play more if you're looking at vocational training where there's an indication that an individual has a high school diploma, but there may be a need for a vocational skill as determined by the risk and needs assessment, and that would put that individual in a program pathway to receive vocational training versus, as Vicki referenced, the TABE test to determine that basic education need.
Chairman Sapicki?
First of all, thank you both for coming here. You are dealing with the problem on the back end. What we're trying to do here, and if you've been following along most recently with what the governor's had in a special session, we are trying everything we can to fix it on the front end. And with the mental health issues and dyslexia, addressing that as early as we can in education to make sure that those students get the help that they need so they can be successful students. Hoping that we can have 100% of our students read and be able to do math on grade level as they proceed through, so that when they do graduate and they turn 18, they have the ability to make good decisions for themselves to hopefully, in my opinion, put you out of business.
Yes.
Put you out of business. So in your opinion, the more we can do on the front end is better to alleviate the issues on the back end. Am I on the right path here?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Once again, thank you for what you do. And if you can, just keep the information coming to us so we know that we have to keep working hard to make this go away as best we can.
Every dollar we had to spend on corrections, we could be spending on education if we didn't have to do that.
I agree.
Commissioner.
I agree 100%. And I would also tell you, invite, as I do any committee, anytime. Mr. Chairman, I know you've been to several of our facilities and you've walked in the classrooms and you've seen the schools. I would invite anybody on this committee at any time to reach out to us. We'll set a time and a date to go to whatever facility you would like to go to just observe yourself and to say, I appreciate the opportunity to have you come and look at your facilities and the people that live in Tennessee, these facilities. We welcome you at any time to come and visit us in TDOC.
Thank you. And Representative Love?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for your presentation. I'm trying to wrap my mind around the process of getting them to the college level. You got some people coming in and second and grade reading levels. So you also have teachers that are doing remediation to get them up to the college level? Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner.
Cover that.
Absolutely. What we do is our classrooms, obviously we can't have one for each level just because of the number of teachers we have and the number of students we have to work with. But we do small group work in the classroom, and we may have a 1 through 3 grade level in a small group in one classroom. Another teacher may have 3 through 6 grade level, kind of like when I was a child in school and 5th and 6th grade level was combined. But we do work in small groups and work to that individual need. And that's how we get them there. And it may take years. This isn't something that's going to happen overnight. It takes years to get them where they need to be.
Okay.
Follow up.
Besides the TCATs, do you have other colleges that are working with you to provide courses in your institutions?
Yes, and we have that in the presentation too to cover that. Yes.
I'll wait then. Okay. Thank you.
We have one more that wants to ask a question, then we'll let you get right back on your presentation. Representative Clemens.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm sorry, I didn't know you weren't done with the presentation, but I appreciate the focus on this. You know, punishment, deterrence, and rehabilitation being the 3 aims of the penal system are traditionally viewed that way. So often rehabilitation gets left out. I think we see that more often in privatized prisons than we do in the state-run facilities. But my question is, you know, you talk about the TCAP partnerships and things like that, and those are only located in certain places throughout the state. What is the ability for inmates to have that inner correctional facility transfer option to be able to access those resources? Guys, I assume they're limited at each facility.
Yes, sir.
We do. So we have a TCAT in 9 of our facilities. The only ones we don't have one is at Mark Luttrell Transition Center, and that's because they can actually go out to school. It's a transition center. And then at DeBerry Special Needs, because of the level of mental health and health care there, we do not have a TCAT there. So TCAT's available in 9 of our 11 TDOC prisons. We have college programs that are also available in 7 of our TDOC prisons. And there is the ability, if there is a need to transfer based on educational need, there is the ability to facilitate that.
Okay. And then, so that leads me again, you bring up DeBerry, which is an incredible facility that serves a very vital need. I think we should probably have several DeBerry facilities in our system, given its capacity. And that takes me back to the mental health screening. I know the inmates go through. Commissioner, can you speak to, because I think the mental health percentage that was given, or inmates who suffer from that, is probably lower than what is actually documented. just from my experience of having represented an inmate or two. That mental health screening, can you speak to who performs that mental health screening, who performs these literacy tests as well?
Yes. And we have individuals, mental health professionals at our diagnostic centers that conducts these screenings. These screenings are conducted by the appropriate people with the appropriate qualifications to conduct those screenings at our intake facilities, and also at any facility where there is a mental health assessment and diagnosis conducted. We have a psychiatrist and mid-level mental health professionals on site that perform these diagnostic tests.
And can you speak to, and I understand if you can't, but can you speak to the processes at Core Civic Institution? Because I know that their mental health professionals are capped at the facility, hours are capped per week, and the level of mental health professional at that facility, and then the amount of quality of the mental health care intake at those facilities. Can you speak to them at all?
So when specifically talking about, and I'm going to try to answer your question, and I may have to get Vicki to follow up on some of this, but as far as intake alone, there's no intake at the Core Civic. All the intake diagnostic testing is done at a TDOC facility. So we cover that. So there's no inmate that goes directly from a jail into a Core Civic facility. In regards to mental health diagnosis that is conducted as a follow-up for a mental health person with a mental illness that's been assessed and determined, there's follow-up mental health assessments that have to be done by our policy. I would reference that to Vicki. But also individuals who may be in restricted housing by ACA standards are required to have mental health diagnosis, and those diagnoses are required to be conducted by a mental health professional with the right licensure to conduct those assessments. And Vicki, do you have anything to add to that?
Just that both health and mental health services are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There always has to be at least someone on call for mental health services. So if there is a mental health crisis or a mental health issue, they have to be seen. And mental health services are free for offenders because they did not want to put a barrier up saying you have to pay for mental health services, and they've always been free.
Okay, I don't want to go too far down that path. The way that actually plays out in Core Civic facilities, and because that's not the issue we're discussing here today. But I guess my last question is getting inmates transferred out of Core Civic facilities to other state-run institutions. Can you speak to the ability of them to do that for educational purposes?
So if those facilities, the instructors in those facilities so let's talk about, if we just say basic educational instructors or vocational instructors, they have to meet the same requirements as a TDOC or as the Department of Education requires. As far as transferring those individuals out, if I'll give you an example. If the strong R, the risk needs assessment, made a determination that an individual needed, let's say, a vocational program, and there was not a vocational program there at that facility, then the process would be that inmate would be flagged for an open space at a facility where that vocational program was available. It would be the same thing if you had if the strong R assessed someone and flagged him or her for a particular drug and alcohol program that might not be available at the facility. The transfer process should be the same as what we see in TDOC facilities, where when we have an open bed as determined by Vicki's staff at another facility where that program is available, that individual should be sent to that facility.
Thank you for answering my questions. And I just want to reiterate what was said by my colleague. You have been some incredible legislative liaisons. So thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Ms. Freeman, you might want to continue. I think you got some more, and we're going to segue in this other presentation in a minute because the addiction and the incarceration, everything fits so well, but you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'd like to talk about higher education enterprise partnerships that we have. I know the question was asked about other higher education programs we have. We have over 200 students enrolled in credit-bearing college programs, and those partnerships are with state community colleges, private colleges such as Lipscomb here in Nashville and Rhodes in Memphis. The Tennessee Higher Education Initiative, which partners with the community colleges of Nashville State, Dyersburg State, and Roane State. We partner with the Tennessee Board of Regents and the Tennessee Higher Education Commission. We do offer college programs at 7 of our facilities. There are 10 college programs. We have 211 enrolled, 12 students in a liberal arts humanities certificate program through Rhodes College, 184 students in an associate degree program, 4 students in a bachelor's degree program, and Lipscomb is the only one that offers bachelor's degree right now, and then 11 students in the Lipscomb's Master of Arts in Christian Ministry program, and that is at our Deborah Johnson Rehabilitation Center for Women. To date, we have the Tennessee Higher Education Initiative in the community colleges, 20 associate's degrees conferred through Lipscomb University, and 10 bachelor's degrees conferred through Lipscomb also. It takes about 7 years to complete an associate's degree program through Lipscomb University. With the TBR initiative, we are trying to fast track that, getting more college courses in this semester, having at least 2 taken instead of 1, so that we can cut that time in half. Just to conclude our presentation, it's really important to just reiterate the stabilizing interventions that we have to have, addressing those mental health needs, impacting that criminogenic thinking, impacting that substance use and continued sobriety. We have to have strategic interventions at every level, from K through 12 on through post-secondary and higher education. And we are just very grateful and appreciative of both the legislature and the governor for correctional education reinvestment. It allowed us not only to provide those robust adult basic education programs that I talked about to help get our offenders up to the reading and math levels they need to get that high set, but also vastly expand our post-secondary offerings. Mr. Chair, this concludes our presentation.
Commissioners, thank you for being here. If you back up real quick, I'm not sure if I misunderstood you, but you mentioned the different facilities across the state, and you specifically said something about the Multicultural Center that was not happening there. Did I misunderstand you, or can you elaborate with that, please?
No, Multicultural, you didn't misunderstand, sir. Multicultural is a transition center, and of course, with the pandemic, things have changed, but post-pandemic, those offenders go out into the community and work, and those offenders can also go out into the community and attend college, and South College is literally right across the street from Multicultural where they can attend. So the program doesn't have to be brought into the institution. It's available in the community.
Follow up.
Do you know approximately how many people are taking advantage of that?
There were only 2 at Multicultural taking advantage of that post-pandemic.
Right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, can I follow up?
Yes, sir, Commissioner, go ahead.
That's a very good question, and I want to make sure that you understand totally the program at Martin Luttrell. That is a program for individuals who are within 2 years of being released from the department, and those individuals have been selected and qualify for the program, but they are involved in and most of them, I would say most of them probably have a high school degree because they are getting jobs, very meaningful jobs in the community. And part of that program is the responsibility they have to pay back fines and fees, to pay any unpaid child support. And we require them to save dollars. We require them to have savings so when they are released, they have the resources necessary, the job skills, and also meaningful employment to be successful. And if that individual makes a choice to go to college and says, I want to get an associate's degree, we support that also. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Commissioner, if I may.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair. And these are the people you see utilizing the degrees that they've earned, such as TCAT, going out and getting jobs with the electric company, earning a very good livable wage so that they can support their family, not only during their incarceration, but when they're released. The construction classes that we offer through TCAT, they're utilizing that education that they already received.
Representative Cochran, you had a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sure it probably varies to a degree, but for an inmate to receive that high set, typically what's the time frame? If you were, you know what I mean? Like if they were to enter that program, is it a wide range or is there kind of a general average of, hey, the program takes this long?
Mr. Commissioner, if I may. There is not a general average that I have, and it all begins with the grade level. If you're coming in at first grade level reading, it's going to take a lot longer than if you're coming in at 9th or 10th grade. So it does vary.
Chairman Sapicki, what do you think about that third grade retention bill we passed?
Well, I mean, we have to make sure that they know, because the end results, as we're seeing here, are not good.
Right.
And I think we've really got to double down on that commitment to make sure that our kids can read and write by the time they leave third grade. I believe the governor put something in his budget this year about increasing the pay to our county systems to help them with anti-recidivism programs. You want to talk about that at all?
Well, sure. And that's a great point. I appreciate you asking that question. Yeah, as we in the Department of Corrections look at a risk-based model, and when I say a risk-based model, it's individualized for that particular individual that we have in custody to determine the risk to recidivate. And what are those factors that we know that needs to be touched and addressed to reduce that risk? And it could be anything from a substance use issue, which is what we call a criminogenic factor. It's a dynamic factor. Also a mental health issue, or a lack of pro-social support, or anti-personality disorder, whatever the case may be. Or it could be simply they need a technical trade to help them find a meaningful job. That risk and needs assessment, what programs this individual goes in and is included in, and the programs that we use are evidence-based programs. We have seen, and we know that the locals, we need to push that, I think, out to the locals and give them the opportunity to be engaged in using evidence-based programs to help with all of these issues. So there's money out there for locals, sheriffs that engage in using evidence-based programs that are PREA compliant, that are certified through the Tennessee Corrections Institute, TCI board, and pass a certification program to commit to using these evidence-based programs to help with educational needs or to help with substance use issues, things like that, that we know reduces recidivism. Again, when you look at the numbers, recidivism numbers across the state, and you compare groups, and we see that need there. We're you need to be by a long shot with the state DOC. I'm not saying that. But we all know that evidence-based programs that's determined by use of a validated risk needs assessment is a much better return on investment than not using evidence-based programs and just putting people into a program that they may want to be in.
Commissioner and Ms. Freeman, thank you so very much for giving y'all's time coming in and share this with us. And members, I'd like to encourage you to take advantage of visitation with the commissioner when he's in your area. And there's so much. Our children are under attack, and this is what this education committee is all about, is trying to help the youth so as they grow to be adults, they can function in the world. It's tough enough when you got everything going for you and this lack of education. And this so segues in. Mr. Dan Spurlock, why don't you come on up and have a seat? Children are under attack. We've got in the addiction process. And I spent about 30 minutes on the phone with Mr. Spurlock the other day, and I asked him to come down and just share with what they're doing. He's got some great information. And I wanted this committee to be aware of some of the issues that our young people are facing in the addiction problem. So Mr. Spurlock, when you get set up, and Hazel, his wife, is with him, if y'all just occupy the two seats and make sure that microphone is back on. And Mr. Spurlock, you are recognized. You may begin.
I'm more accustomed to standing up in the dirt and briefing, so if I stumble around a little bit, pardon that. We're gonna give it a good run here. My wife Hazel, and I want to just tell you that we are very, very pleased to be able to come over here. We come over from Eastern Tennessee, Claiborne County, 8th District. Jerry Sexton's our representative, and Frank Nicely is our senator. So we're here to bring you an idea. That's what we're here for, to present an idea for you. But let me just say, getting started, that when you talk about prevention, and we talk about the previous presentation, prevention is in education. Prevention and education is what our group, the Stand in the Gap Coalition, we believe that's the hottest iron in the fire for our children. So we are on the prevention side of the program because I know that if I can reach the children, okay, then I can prevent them from going to that next step. And I hope I'll show you some of that here in just a moment. But to give you an idea who's speaking to you for a moment here today, not that you need to remember that, but my wife Hazel is a professional realtor broker. She's licensed in 3 states over where we live. If you can't work in 3 states, you can't work. But so she has to do continual education. And if you know anything about real estate, every year it's a continuing education. Myself, I spent 22 years in the Marine Corps, all active duty as a Marine aviator, and Representative White, I didn't know you had an idea for rotor heads and rotorcraft, but I flew for 22 years the largest aircraft we have in America, the CH-53 Super Stallion by Sikorsky. It's our heavy lift helicopter. And so in my line of work, continuing education has been my whole life. The last 17 years of my professional work life, I flew with a major airline, and in that capacity, it's always going to training, always going to school. So we're going to try to show you, and the idea is that standardization in the state of Tennessee for our children's training on drug awareness, substance abuse and addiction processes is crucial. I will tell you here today as we start off this brief that in the state of Tennessee today, we do not have a single piece of legislation that mandates that every child in the state of Tennessee will get a standardized level of drug awareness, substance abuse, and addiction process training. We have lots of people doing the work. We have lots of people educating and doing the work, but we don't have one consolidated source so that when you lay your head on the pillow at night, you can lay your head on the pillow at night and go, I know that every child in Tennessee, particularly from the 5th grade through the 12th grade, has got the same level of knowledge. So that's what we're trying to talk about today. Our focus primarily is on the kids and on the first screen right there. You know, if you have a pencil, you know, it's always good to write something, but where it says SAP, it says Drug Awareness Training, SAP, S-A-A-P, that's Substance Abuse and Addiction Process Training. You'd be amazed at how many children don't know that they're living in an addictive process situation. So if you would, you could write that down, substance abuse and addictive processes situation. I'm going to walk you through a little bit of who we are. I'm not going to get down in the weeds on it because I want to get out to the end of the presentation where the heart of the matter is. If you have something you want to tune in anytime, you can. So who are we? What is the story? Who are we? Well, we are the Stand in the Gap Coalition. You can see at the top, we are a 501c3. We are not to the Stand in the Gap, to the Cumberland Gap, and all wearing shirts that said Stand in the Gap, that said, I want to take a stand against this drug issue that we're having for our children and our communities. So we've been organized since 2010. Hazel and I are the originators of the Stand in the Gap Coalition, and it's an all-volunteer based group. Right now, our prevention, our focus is something we have because of a state grant. We have a small state grant to affect some social and cultural change where we live. At binge drinking, tobacco use, non-prescription medical. Just curious by chance, who would take a chance to identify what the definition for binge drinking is? Anybody want to take a guess?
Anybody want to take a stab? Representative Gillespie, you got your hand up?
Statistically, it said, go ahead. Oh, you're going to, yes, sir.
You're recognized.
I think this is a trick question.
Is considered to be binge drinking. So how many kids go and pile up in a car and pound down 4 or 5 beers in 2 hours? Binge drinking. And so the state wants us to affect some sort of a change of thinking of that so that people can even recognize what the binge drinking is. We work on cooperative efforts with everyone in our county, particularly our law enforcement and our education, but we really seek to promote a more safe and health Claiborne County. That's what we're all about. Button there. Good sign.
Okay, in your live video streaming, so just state your name so everybody knows.
For safe and healthy Claiborne County. We also are active in Virginia and Kentucky as a coalition.
Thank you.
Okay. On the next page, it says, okay, so that's who we are. Now, what do we do? Well, we promote it and pursue a safe and drug-free community is what we're after. You can see there we have some community initiatives. We let people know where the drop boxes are for the count it, lock it, and drop it. We have a Give Me a Reason free drug testing kit, a full 12-panel kit that we make available to anybody, particularly to parents, to put on the refrigerator that says, no, I'm not messing around. I'm not goofing off, Mom and Dad. Okay, well then just in case we think you are, well, you'll take this test, right? Privacy of your own home, no blood test, okay, cannot be used in any punitive measure, a real piece of leverage for
It's saliva based.
for kids. Great program. In the school side of the prevention initiatives, we do the substance abuse training. In 2019, we trained over 3,000 kids in our area, and we designed and built the courses. They're 45-minute course, 4 courses. And the first course is called Stop, Look, and Listen, and the second course is called Addiction. What is it? You would assess an addiction home, and they don't identify it as that because it seems we have a youth prevention training, and we try to maintain that communication with our school resources officers. I think most everywhere across the state of Tennessee now has that. They are a fine source for us to work with. We've got an on-site media lab that we've developed, and what we're trying to create now is a relationship. We work closely with the legal system and our judicial system. If a child is brought over to the judicial system under the juvenile court system for a infraction at school, vaping on property, some other issue, instead of getting tied up into a legal issue, they can come to us and we take them through a course of training of 4 hours, and then we will go and we'll send that back to the court system and say, okay, we've given them this training, and that's their first strike as they would try to work with this program to keep the kid out of the legal system. So those are some of the things we do. Here's the kicker. What's the story today? The story today, folks, it's pretty drastic. All we've heard for the last year, going on 2 years now, is the opiate epidemic. Before November of 2020, all we heard for the previous 2 years, was the opiate epidemic, okay? And for the last year, all we've heard is the COVID problem, understood, okay? But no one has talked about the opiate. But there's the real story right there. In 2020, there were 81,000 deaths per year. You can read those numbers. I don't need to read them to you. But the one that's the kicker is while we sit in this room today, before we leave here in America, 9 people will have attempted an overdose, okay? Startling. It's 7 times greater than that, okay, when you put it all together, all right? And I just recently discovered that they're saying now that in the last 12 months, it's the greatest increase, the greatest single increase in drug overdose deaths this past 12 months while the COVID was going on. It's a really strange relationship. Then you can see the Tennessee statistics. I'm sure you've probably seen these before. But in Tennessee, there'll be 5 people a day drug overdose deaths. How's that pertinent here? 24% of those are going to be youth. So we do have an issue that we can correct. That's what we're here talking about. We do have a prevention idea that we can do through education, okay, and through a systematic program. Here's how we get the message out. Here's one way right here. We built this board. It's up. It's in a prominent place. Mothers and dads can see it coming from the listen to somebody, and we've got a number over to the left. Came up with stop, look, and listen. Talk to somebody. That we start getting out there. Then we're going to go out and then we say, okay, now we're going to tell the story. And this is how we tell it. This is how we propose it. Folks, we are talking about not another huge program for some to create another moon launch. we're talking about information that's already out there, but we got to get it in a more concise and a consolidated manner. But we go out into the school gymnasiums and we go in and we start telling them the story. We take the programs that we built that are 45 minutes long that I just told you about. Left and right of that, you will see the face change on that young lady. It's incredible, just incredible. And when we do this presentation in the gymnasiums, the kids will be walking out and they're filing out and then they stop and they back up and they look again and look again. Visual is everything. Meeting the kids where they are is everything. Kids are begging to hear truth today. They're begging just the truth. And that's all we try to give them is the truth. One of the things I do when I give this presentation is I will go and I'll hold up my cell phone. I say, how many of you got one of these? Now, we're talking Eastern Tennessee, folks, Southeast Kentucky, all right? 90%, at least 90%. I got one. And we go and we say, okay, we want to make sure you understand something. That is a tool. It's not the truth. Don't mix it up with the truth. It's the tool. Tools can be good or not so good. You got kids out there today having Skittles parties where they go and they get dared to go and bring meds from their mother or grandparents' cabinets, and they go to a party and they throw in a couple of cases of beer and they put all these pills. They just pour them into a bowl and they mix them up and they just dare each other to take them. What's the difference between now when you and I were in high school and down the road? One pill today, one pill will take a kid all the way down the road to tragedy. And they don't see that. And they think they learn this through having their cell phones. They are pseudo-pharmacists. And so we educate them. That's not the truth. That's just a tool. Make sure you know how you're using it. So we get out there and we tell the story. And then we make sure we tell all the students. We get them into the assemblies. And I will tell you right now that so far, like I said, over 3,000 children we've trained. So we know something about what we're trying to tell you today. These kids and the teachers, I've never seen something so well received by teachers. Every time they come up after the presentations and say, thank you very much. Can you come back? Can you come back? Then the next thing is the audience. There they are. They're all out there and we're talking to them, all right? Let me show you something, or let me read something to you, please. In one of our presentations, 2 weeks later after the presentation, I got a letter from a teacher. She's teaching 5th and 6th grade students, and she's teaching them how to write and write letters. And she sent me this, and if you will allow me, I'm going to read you 2 short letters. This is from the teacher. This is in January of 2020. Dear Mr. Spurlock, first let me say a huge thank you for speaking to these young students at the Pineville Independent. Your message was vital and will continue to be in these young students' lives. Each day I hear another story about how drugs have wrecked their home. When we returned from your program, several students began sharing stories about how they could use your message to try to reach a family member fighting addiction. I knew you would be blessed to know what an impact your program has children. I teach reading and writing here at Pineville, and letter writing is a standard we are learning. The students asked if they could write you a letter. I hope you enjoy them. And again, thank you for taking time to speak to us. God bless. I just want to read one letter. This letter is from Nathan. Nathan says, Dear Dan Spurlock, I am a 5th grader at Pineville Independent School. I just want to thank you for coming to our school. Talking to us about drugs and addictions was very helpful. The program was awesome. I learned that vaping is very bad for you. Also, drugs are bad for you. This has helped me a lot. I also can talk to a couple people about vaping. I also know somebody that died by drugs. Drugs and vapes are very bad to me since you explained them. Last paragraph. I thank you for coming to our school. This has changed a lot of people's minds. Thanks for telling us the truth. This has changed and saved people's lives. Thanks for the program. I hope to see you again next year. Nathan. That's the audience. So there's no doubt how we can reach these people. There's no doubt how we can get to them. Now, what do we know? And we've presented this to our school board. And what we know is this: teachers work hard. They work really hard. They can spend 12 years with a student, pouring themselves into that student. And in the 12th hour of the 12th year, the student can make a very dumb mistake by not being informed. You would not believe how many children die today because they didn't have the knowledge. It's not like when we were in high school and junior high. I don't know about you, but you know, there were a Schlitz malt liquor wasn't going to kill me when I was in high school, okay? But I'm going to tell you that now the kids can get started on one time to meth, one time to OxyContin. God forbid somebody lace something with that fentanyl, okay? So it's a way dangerous world out there for the kids. And if we can just change that for one kid, isn't it worth it all? Okay. So we know that the teachers work hard, and we know that in the 12th hour of the 12th year, it can all go up in smoke. The number one reason students fail to graduate today, drugs. Now, let me clarify that a little bit, okay? There are other reasons, but if a student gets involved with drug activity, it'll turn out to be a number one reason they won't turn around and they won't graduate. It's serious. So standardized and consistent drug awareness, substance abuse, and addictive process, the process training, we think is vital. 5th through 12th grades is where the focus ought to be. That's what we're coming over and trying to plant the seeds for. Let's get it consolidated in the state. Let's bring it under one program and make sure that every child gets the same level of training from the 5th to the 12th grades. There's a lot of programs out there, a lot of good programs, but what if we could consolidate them and make them more comprehensive, okay? Instead of having multiple course, the money's already funded in a whole lot of education programs out there. We just realigned that money. I spoke to my congressman, Tim Burchett, about this. I've spoken to my other representatives. And the first question I always get is, how are you going to fund this? How does it get funded? I said, I believe the money's already out there. And I believe we can find it. It's already in education sources out there doing this kind of training in a lot of different venues. We just need to consolidate it. All right? But what we know is 5th to the 12th grades, if a child, the statistics are this, if a child gets consistent drug awareness, substance abuse, and addiction process training from the 5th to the 12th grade, there's a less than 10% chance they'll fail to graduate. That's good money. That's a way big uptick. Also, it says that if they get this same kind of training, that less than 20% of them, if they get this consistent training, 5th through the 12th grade, less than 20% will take up an addictive process as a young adult. That's a big uptick. I saw and I said, look, we can reduce that legal involvement. We can reduce what the warden's having to look at and train people and educate people, okay? If we get to see them from the 5th through the 12th grade, we know there's a certain level of education they're going to get that's going to go into their adult life, all right? We can also increase their citizen productivity, okay? And we can also promote a more healthy, a safe, and a healthy community. Now, how would we do this? What do we say? This timeline here just gives you an idea of what we would propose in the state of Tennessee across every school system through the 5th to the 12th grade. The bottom line is, and those dates on there, I just put them on is so we'd have something to look at. But what you're looking at is that a child would get 6 hours of classroom training per year. In a whole year, 6 hours. 1.5 hours twice each semester, okay? And in that training, they would get this continual training on the addiction processes and substance abuse. But here's something that's way different that nobody's talking about. What about the teachers? What about the parents, okay? What about the school resource officers? You would have no idea how many teachers have come up to me after our presentation and said, I had no idea that vaping would do that. Okay? Let me show you something. This could be sitting on any child's desk.
More like that, probably.
Probably more like this, a Dasani, okay? Or this could be in any young lady's backpack. No issue. Hollow here, marijuana, pills. Okay, we bought these off of Amazon. You can buy these anywhere. It's a deceptive decoy is what I call it, okay? It simply fits together like this. Kid puts it in, they come home. You don't think a thing about it when your grandchild comes home or your child from school. Looks like water to me. Airbrush. Take the end off. Storage place, pills, marijuana, vapes. The vapes are small enough, they fit in here. Education is important. Updated information is even more important. So what we propose is that along with the children getting the education, once per semester, an hour and a half, parents, teachers, and as school resources officers will get an updated training on what's out there in the community, what's happening. Do you realize that you could have your grandchild come home with a yellow highlighter, a big barrel yellow highlighter, okay, in the backpack? You think nothing about it. It's a vape, okay? Vaping is physically debilitating to a child, okay? When a child gets and does vaping for so long, that vape goes through the alveolar parts of the airways and the lung, okay? But when it comes back, it doesn't filter back through. It hangs up and it crystallizes, and it's something, there's a slang word they're calling popcorn lung. I don't know if you've heard of that or not, okay? I've got a quick story about a young girl who's up in New Jersey. This happened a year ago. 13 years old. She goes to the mall on the weekend. She meets with her two other girlfriends. They go outside. They meet with a couple other kids. Hey, we're having a good old time. They're out there blowing these big smoke rings. I know you've seen it, okay? Using their vape. All right? She thought, oh, that's pretty cool. Hey, you need to try this. So she did. She didn't see any real problem with it. It even had a taste to it. It tasted like gummy bears, okay? She comes back next weekend. They try it again. A few more friends are out there. She's starting to feel just a little bit more popular. She's feeling a little bit more in, all right? So then, let's fast forward this. 2 months later, she's bought her own vape. She has it between the box spring and the mattress. She can't get out of bed in the morning to go to school till she takes a hit on the vape. And she doesn't understand why. She doesn't understand that she's now addicted to nicotine, because nicotine is the base source of the vape product. This particular young lady in New Jersey had been on a swim team, private swim team, since she was 8 years old. Now she's 13, and she got dropped off of the swim team because she couldn't breathe. She could no longer compete. Her parents don't understand what's going on. Her attitude has changed. She's not doing the same toward her own schoolwork anymore. And finally, she got scared enough to talk to her parents. And then the issue gets greater, because where do you take a child? Which physician do you take a child to say, my child's addicted to nicotine? What do I do? How do I deal with this? So we have a real onslaught upon our children. So this training, what we're proposing is a standardized training, but a key to it is getting the parents and the teachers and the school resource officers trained as well, because this changes every day. There's somebody after your child every single day, or your grandchild. So that's the training. And as you see down there, it says the semester training focus. First semester, we built a project called Stop, Look, and Listen. I showed you that. Second, addiction. What is it? You'd be amazed. How do you define addiction? These kids, ask them what it's like, what kind of home they live in. Third semester, teens for teens. We found out that nobody gives a stronger witness than teens telling other teens what they know. And these teens say, thank you for telling us the truth. They just want to know the truth. And then finally, the fourth semester, as they're getting ready to leave school, it's at the end of the year, the training is help and where. Over the summer, where do I go if I got to call somebody? Where do I go if I need some help? Where do I go if I need to get somebody else some help? So we would propose each year a training that's 6 classroom hours for students, 3 classroom hours for parents. Now of course, that's voluntary, okay? But in that, it would be age specific from the 5th to the 12th grade. We propose that we can get that aligned in the state of Tennessee and be the first state in America to know that every child is getting the same base plate, the same boilerplate of information. Steps to success. All right, we've talked about it. Now what? First, let's conceptualize a standard. And that's what we're here talking about today. Let's get a standard to talk about drug awareness and substance abuse and addiction process training statewide. It could be a phased-in approach. All right. Now, keep in mind, I'm proposing this to you. I'm not a government person. I'm not a representative. I'm a private citizen, but I've been doing this for 10 years. Okay. I've been doing training all my life. All right. Hazel's been doing training most all of her life. Okay, so we conceptualize it. Then we determine who the program leads would be. Well, I'm proposing mental health and substance abuse, then an education a part of it, and then a physical part, because we got to find out where the money is. We got to find out a health organization to look it over, and we need to find out from the education people who's already doing this kind of education. Verify the existing programs, okay? We need to write a bill. It needs to go to a bill. And this bill needs to finally go to a piece of legislation where that we can say, there's no doubt about it, every child's going to get the same education every year in the state of Tennessee. And then finally, okay, we would just celebrate having a new law, knowing that every student has got this training. By the way, Representative Mark has got this handout that's available if somebody wants to come and get it. I brought them if you'd like to get this, okay? But in any case, that's who we are, and we'd love to talk to somebody again. In the state of Tennessee, there's lots of drug coalitions. There's at least 22, okay? They all come under mental health substance abuse services. They're all doing different things. They're all good people. That's another source of putting some of this together, okay? But what we're missing, folks, what we're missing is the consolidated plan to where everybody, every school system teaches the same thing to every student so that we can put our head on the pillow at night and go, you know what? I'm not going to worry about that one little kid down there that didn't get the word, you know, and went to that party and goofed off and had tragedy because of it. So I'm saying all we need for the considerations, finally, we need an organization to do an exploratory search in how this could be done. And I think there they are. We need the funding. I think there's some existing programs out there. I think there's state programs out there, and I think there's some federal money out there. But it's not like we're going to the moon again. This is not what this is. There's enough out there right now in my research that we can put this together, consolidate, and have something statewide that no other state in America's got. Finally, I'd say we need it standardized, and then we need it mandated, and that's the goal. That go for the reason we're here. And finally, it should be our challenge that no child is left behind on this kind of knowledge. It's almost irresponsible as adults if we can't see that every child at least has the same boilerplate of information to keep them safe and healthy. The impacts are great. The impact to the student is great. The impact to that student's family is great. The impact to community is great. The impact to the legal system is great. There's no downside. I appreciate your time. Hazel, do you have anything?
I would just like to thank everybody for their time. I know y'all been long hours here, and we appreciate that. Just know that the reading, the writing, and the arithmetic amounts to nothing when one pill or one wrong move can take a kid out of here.
Thank you so very much. And we appreciate y'all driving all the way from Upper East Tennessee to present this. What a great work. Our children need to be educated on this. And members, I wanted you to hear this and maybe put our minds together. I've got contact cards from Mr. Spurlock that I want to give to you. I've got copies of the presentation so we can follow up, or at least you can follow up in your district and you'd like to. So anyone have a comment or question from our guest about the presentation? Well, it was well done. Oh, yes, sir. Representative Love.
No question, more of a comment. Thank you for this information. I know that many times parents may be oblivious to even things like this. And so this has been eye-opening for me to really just see how much stuff has evolved and My concern is that even in some convenience stores, I know I have some in my neighborhood, you have glass containers
Totally.
full of crack pipes, essentially. But because there's no residue in them, it's not illegal. And so this conversation I've had with the police department, because it's just a device. But until it has some drug paraphernalia in it, it's not illegal for them to just sell it as it is. And so sometimes having even those images with kids walking in is very dangerous also. So just seeing it being hidden is eye-opening for me. Thank you.
Representative Carringer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I serve on Metro Drug Coalition in Knox County, have for many years, and very passionate, dear to my heart. And I'm always amazed at the things that come through, that the new ways that kids have learned to get their drugs and hide it from their parents and all. But I would say I did not know how the bottles come apart, and I had not heard or seen about the hairbrushes and all. I would love, and I think I've seen your all's presentation maybe once or maybe something through that, but I'm right there close to you with Knox County schools. And I've always said, continue to say that it's all about education. It all comes around back to education, and that our children, I mean, even though this is like 5th grade up, and when you and I, because I know we must be close to the same age, because you said junior high, and now that's called middle school. But now, I mean, our kids are seeing this and being around this much earlier than 5th grade. And the thing about having the training in it and the courses, I said, it's got to be taught. It's got to be a part of our curriculum somehow in our schools. And it has to be competitive, just like reading, arithmetic, the whole thing. You continue to learn on it. And to really get it sunk in to our children. And our children are no longer children now when they're 3rd grade, although by age level, but they're adults to a sense of what they know and how they can operate these things and these things. I mean, they're whizzes at it. And so that's where, I mean, they're getting more information every single day, and there are people getting involved in them where they're innocent when they first start getting into this. They don't, hey, well, it's okay, so-and-so. So I'm a strong supporter of this and how we've got to get in our education system and how standardized it's got to be all statewide. You can't have different counties and cities having different programs.
Absolutely.
Because that's very confusing. It's just like how our whole COVID situation has been. You've had this one saying this one and this one saying that, and about the mask and all, and then at the point you get where everybody just doesn't pay any attention to it, and they just take what they want to believe, or so we've got to be truthful and tell the truth from day one, that they see it, and continue to tell them that year after year, and somehow believe that, hey, you've had to save some kids' lives just from the education part of it, and continuing to put that through. So, they used to have all of the, and it was a 5th grade course, DARE, a DARE program when my daughter was going through school. And you know what? It all went away.
Yep.
It was such a big thing. And we had a lot of athletes, a lot of the UT football players went and spoke, and they had a big graduation every year. Well, what happened to any of that? I mean, like I say, I serve on Metro Drug Coalition, which has our DA, our sheriff, our school superintendent. It has everybody, Helen Ross McNabb, people, Cherokee Health. We have everybody that's involved. And I don't know, I've never heard of any programs that we are really teaching all across the state of Tennessee in every school system, any kind of education that, I mean, it should just be something health class and all that. I don't even know if that's even being taught. But totally support you all. I hope that there's something that we, as a board and our legislators, will take very serious, because we were making some progress on the opioid issue and all, and now everything with COVID and the depression and all that scared a lot of that back up. And I hate to quit putting the blame on stuff. It's time that we say, we know this is an issue and this is a problem for all children. It doesn't matter what part of the county or what, that you live in, what area. It is a huge problem, and they are out there attacking our children every single day by, like you say.
Mhm.
So thank you very much. And you're right there close to something that we can educate our kids on this. Because if we don't teach them how to read and all, that also plays into this. That is one reason why sometimes they get into this, is because they feel very insecure and they can't do in school like a lot of the other kids. So it's kind of a way for them sometimes, I think, to try to feel cool or the group. And of course, accept you as long as you're willing to act just like they are, then they'll drag you right along with it. So thank you very much. And thank you, Chairman, for having the passion about this to bring it to all, to everyone and say, hey, it all goes hands in hand. We can spend millions of dollars, billions of dollars on education. But if we don't educate our children about what is really going on in the real world, then we've lost them also. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And members, I remember I've got contact information, the presentation, the PowerPoint, and other reading materials that Mr. and Ms. Spurlock brought. Ms. Spurlock, why don't you end it with the 7 Corinthians 7:14? I got a pen here. I think you might have some extra ones. And
So it's on our first slide, okay, and it's at the bottom because we are a faith-based group, okay, but we work with everyone. That's been giving us a little problem, but anyways, we work with anyone and everybody. But 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, "If my people who are called will humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways and seek my face, I will hear their prayers from heaven, and I will heal their land." We started praying that from the pinnacle above the Cumberland Gap in October of 2010, because we believe that our tri-state area where we live, we think it's really a neat place. But God gave it to us before he gave it to the thugs. And I believe that God will honor his word.
thank you so much. Appreciate it. Members, don't forget. And any objection to being adjourned? Hearing none, we're adjourned.
Thank you. God bless you.